You are listening to Sports Talk with Thomas. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk with Thomas. I am your host, Thomas Gibbons, and today's the biggest topic of them all. The NFL Draft is on Thursday in Nashville. The first round kicks off on Thursday, followed by rounds 2 through 7 split up on Friday and Saturday. It's one of the biggest weekends of the NFL offseason. Your favorite team gets some highly talented prospects, and it's just one day closer to the NFL season. Again, just a few days away. There is still a lot of hot chatter in who will go number 1, who your favorite team will select, and of course, who my Chicago Bears will get with the little draft capital that they do have. With the Bears acquiring Khalil Mack and several other pieces last year, they will not pick until number 87 overall, which will be in the 3rd round. So it's going to be unusual. We've seen the Bears draft pretty highly, considering their performance on the field in the past couple seasons, but now with them doing so well and going out and getting a high-profile player like Khalil Mack, that we're going to have to wait a little bit. So running down the Bears draft board here, the Bears will pick in the 3rd round at 87, 4th round at 126, 5th round at 162, and 2 7th-round picks at 222 and 238 overall. Bears have a couple of needs, and there are a lot of players that will be available. The Bears have done well, especially Ryan Pace, since he's come to the Bears as general manager, has done well in the later rounds finding talent. Eddie Jackson, Tariq Cohen, just to name a few. He has an eye for talent, and so do the Bears scouts. It's a group effort over there at Hallis Hall, and they're doing a great job so far. Again, Bears won't pick till round 3, and in 87, there's a lot of speculation that they will go running back. Last year, running back was, you could say, a weakness in the offense. Jordan Howard is a ground and pound back, but he is not someone who's going to fit Matt Nagy's West Coast style of offense. He doesn't have that burst out speed. He doesn't have that good of hands. He'll get you 3 or 4 yards of carry. He'll hold on to the football. He'll get you in the end zone on the 1-yard line, but he's just not an overall fit of what Matt Nagy wants to do. So the Bears, they'll probably draft their starting running back here in this draft, hopefully. They have Tariq Cohen. They added Mike Davis from Seattle, who both, fit the offense very well. They have another guy on the roster, Ryan Nall, they took last year in free agency from Oregon State. Big, tall back who has good hands that can work out of the backfield in the passing game. So, we'll see him get his shot. But there are a lot of intriguing running backs in this year's draft class that the Bears could go after and land. The top guys on the board are Miles Sanders at Penn State, Darnell Henderson from Memphis, Devin Singletary from Florida Atlantic, Trayvon Williams from Texas A&M. I mean, there is a handful of running backs, and it is maybe as deep as class as we've seen in the past couple years. Can't forget about Bryce Love out of Stanford, Raquel Armstead from Temple, Mike Weber from Ohio State. So there are options if the Bears wanted to get an impact player on the defensive side of the ball, to add behind Mack and Floyd in the pass rush. They could get an edge rusher in the 3rd round. They could get a cornerback since they lost Bryce Callahan. They could get one there. They could draft a safety like Amani Hooker from Iowa with the departure of Adrian Amos. Now, the Bears did sign HaHa Clinton-Dix in the offseason, but it's just a 1-year deal. And if you're going to pay Eddie Jackson big next summer, you're not going to be able to afford 2, expensive safeties, especially HaHa Clinton-Dix. He's a Pro Bowler. He's an All-Pro. If he has a great year, he's going to get a big payday. And the Bears are already tight as the cap as it is, with big contracts to Khalil Mack and Kyle Fuller and Allen Robinson. And then in a couple years they're going to have to pay Mitch Trubisky if he works out. So there's a reason that draft day is so important. Even if you don't get some of the top picks in the draft, because you still got to fill out your roster, and the guys that you draft are hopeful starters in the future, and you can save some money that way. Going to the general talk of the NFL, the projected first-round pick right now is Kyler Murray out of Oklahoma. Quarterback, Arizona holds the top pick in this year's draft, and even though they have Josh Rosen, who played last year for them, they got rid of their head coach and brought in Cliff Kingsbury, and he runs, a West Coast offense, RPO system, and Kyler Murray speaks Cliff Kingsbury's guy. Josh Rosen, he's more of a pocket passer. He's less dynamic. He's not going to really escape the pocket like Murray and make plays with his feet. So Kyler Murray seems to be the obvious choice here for Arizona Cardinals. And here's what ESPN had to say about that.
You're not taking Kyler Murray, one. Why? Because we just learned yesterday Russell Wilson became the highest paid player in the NFL. And Jim Nagy, who's a longtime scout, he's at the Seahawks, told this story where he was with the Chiefs. And they sat in a room a couple days before the draft and said, what don't we like about Russell Wilson? And everyone said nothing but 3 inches. Is that the same case for the Cardinals and Kyler Murray? Like, what don't you like about Kyler Murray other than the 3 inches of his height? Because if that's the case, you have to learn from history. You better learn from history going all those teams that passed on Russell. I look back and go, look at last year. Imagine if the Browns didn't take Baker Mayfield 1. It would be a totally different narrative around this team.
Right. NFL teams and scouts and fans have become obsessed with this hype, and this, sometimes false narrative around quarterbacks and their height. You got to have a tall quarterback to see over the line of scrimmage. You got to have a guy who can, deliver the ball with a strong arm. But again, he, like, Dan Orlovsky says, you look back at history, and you see guys who excel. Russell Wilson, he's under 6 foot. Baker Mayfield is short. All these guys have proven time and time again that it's not just the height. It's a lot of skill, and Kyler Murray has that skill. We saw it last year at Oklahoma. So he's obviously the consensus number one. If Arizona stays at 1, which I think they will. And, there's a lot of guys they could pass up. If they want to roll with Rosen, then they'll roll with Rosen, and they can get a guy like Nick Bosa or Josh Allen who can rush off the edge. But, I think the safe pick here is quarterback, because quarterback's the most important position in football. And I always think about, round 1 draft picks and who you want to take at 1 or anywhere in the first round. It's who's going to throw my football, who's going to protect the guy throwing the football, and who's going to rush off the edge to go get the other guy throwing the football. It's the 3 most important positions in football, but quarterback stands there all alone at number 1. Just running through, Mel Kiper of ESPN always releases mock drafts constantly throughout the offseason, and he does a great job in predicting, and he has a lot of knowledge inside NFL rooms. He has a lot of sources that deal with how these teams are going to go on draft day. Here are his top 5 as of now. Kyler Murray to Arizona, 1. Number 2 is held by San Francisco. They're going to pick Nick Bosa. Number 3, New York Jets, Josh Allen. Number 4, Oakland, Quinnen Williams. Could arguably be one of the best defensive tackles in the draft and maybe in the past couple years. Devin White. He predicts Devin White, inside linebacker from LSU, to go to Tampa Bay at 5. And again, you never know what's going to happen. A lot of these teams could trade out. They could pick someone that no one saw coming. So that's what always makes draft day interesting. You can't predict this kind of stuff, and it's going to be exciting to see where all these players have a new home by the weekend. So bouncing back to the Bears real quick. Again, they got 5 picks in this year's draft. Not a lot of draft capital. Ryan Pace has worked with a lot more in the past couple years, but Ryan Pace has always gotten creative, whether it's trading up to get the guy he wants, maybe trading down a few spots to regain some capital. So if history tells us one thing, Ryan Pace won't be drafting in these selections come draft weekend here. He'll move up, he'll move down, trade something away for a player. You never know. But his aggressiveness is not going to stop, especially with this Bears window of opportunity to, take control of the division for the next couple of years and really build something special in Chicago. That'll do it for another edition of Sports Talk with Thomas. Thanks for tuning in.